So I'm going to pretend this is a strip center. These are all 1,000 square foot spaces. It's a 6-unit retail center, 6,000 square feet, all 1,000 square feet each. They're all rented for 2,000-ish bucks per month, okay? Roughly. This is where they're all at. Okay, I'll even do $2,000 just to make it really freaking easy. Yeah, why not? Let's just say $2,000 a month. We'll say it's a decent location. All right, $2,000 a month. Let's go to, I'll explain exactly what we're talking about in just a second. And I just want to see what the expenses are real quick. Utilities, that's all fine. Insurance, taxes. Let's just say this is a real life example. Repairs, maintenance, everything's here. Okay, so let's just pretend we have this deal going on. This is the exact expenses of the shopping center. Comes to $8.36 per foot. Is it dividing by the actual square footage? All right, that's fair. Because basically what I'm having this do is that this is auto-calculating this amount of square footage. This total expenses divided into the 6,000 square feet total for the facility. But what I actually want to do here is I want to be careful and make sure that I actually calculate it off of this number instead. Anyways, we're going off of this total, right? We're going off of the first 4 quarters, the first year of expenses divided by the square footage of the retail center, right? You could pretend this is mixed use. You could pretend this is an industrial building, a retail, does not matter what it is, okay? We're going to pretend like it's retail in this instance, but it comes to the same example. Now, let's pretend this right now shows that this is a gross rent deal. This is not triple net. This just shows you the difference. So I'm making $2,000 per tenant, right? Times 6, which is $12,000 a month, right? $36,000 per quarter. And I am running it at a 10% vacancy rate, which is a very normal thing to do, by the way, if you're doing retail. And this is specifically for mom and pop retail facilities, very small retail facilities. You're going to see this all day long, right? Mom and pop type of tenants. So I'm doing it at a 10% expense ratio. This is what gross rent looked like. Because if I go to summary right now, based on, let's just, I have $800,000. You can ignore the purchase price, but it is saying, that I make, after my vacancy expense, right? I'm making $32,400 a quarter, or for the first year, I'm making $131,000 in gross income. My expenses is $50,000 a year. Okay, my net income comes to that $80,000. Obviously, I have it based off of right now $800,000 as a purchase price. So don't think about that. But you can see that like my expenses show only $50,000, and again my net income shows $80,000. So 131 gross. And my net operating income right now is $81,000, right? Just under $81,000. If, let's just say in your example, your question was, how would I break it down if it was all triple net? That's your question?
Yeah, I guess my question is, how would you break it down when the tenants are technically the income and expenses are skewed? Because if the tenants are reimbursing for the triple nets, then you're
Exactly. So what you'll do is so let's just say all of these tenants are triple net, which by the way, I want you to understand something, guys. Triple net, 100% pure triple net is not the most common scenario. It is not the most common scenario. It's what we would all like to have. As a landlord, I'd love to have that. And as an investor, I'd love to get into deals where it is a true triple net, where they pay legitimately 100% of expenses. It's just not the normal. What normal or typically happens is when they say triple net, you have to make sure you say, I want to read the lease just to confirm. You want to make sure you read the lease to confirm the details. But what'll happen is that sometimes it'll just say the tenant is responsible for their own utilities and common area maintenance. That could be pretty typical. And that does not mean taxes. That does not mean insurance. It could. You have to read the lease. But most of the time, it just means that they're paying common area maintenance, which if we go to expenses real quick before we start plugging in numbers, that might only mean utilities, which might not be a lot. That might mean trash removal. That might mean, landscaping and snow, which by the way, I know I didn't have it here, but let's just add it in for whatever reason. Let's just say it's another $6,000 a year for whatever it is. For both landscaping and snow. Okay, let's just say it's not a lot, but anyways, that means that they would they might pay this portion, so that's $13,400 plus, let's just do all this real quick, just for quick number's sake, $18,000, right? Minus the $1,200 for marketing, $17,000. So they're, call it utilities plus CAM, they might only pay $17,000 of the expenses. Now my expenses is $56,000. So that, the guy said, oh, it's triple net, they pay everything. No, they don't, right? So you need to be, very cautious and read through the leases and see exactly what they pay. So as an example here, we might go to income and we might add back $17,000 worth of expenses that they would cover. So then what we would do is we would take $17,000 divided by 6,000 feet, is $2.83 a foot. So all I'll do is I'll go equals 1,000 times 284. Okay, I'm just rounding real quick. Right now, I want to make sure I divide that by a month because this is for the year, by the way. Right, divide by 12. Okay, 237 bucks. Now I take this all the way down. Everybody's paying their percentage. They're paying 17 grand, which means I'm now reimbursements. This is adding back reimbursements. So I'm now adding back 237 bucks a month or 17 grand per year total into my bottom line. Now that will basically cancel each other out, and I can go back now to cash flow, and I can see here my income now went up, right? I believe by 15 grand because it's also still taking off. It's still taking off 10% for vacancy, by the way. So it's taking that into account. I want you to know, like, that's why it's not exactly 17 grand, but you will see roughly, call it 17 grand minus 10%, whatever that is, added to the operating income. And then my net income is now 89,000 because what it is also calculating is a larger, I mean, again, 10% off of the extra 17 grand bump. I mean, it's taking off a lot of money. So anyways, my point is that they're reimbursed, I'm making back a certain percentage of that. You can see that here, right? So now my income is now higher by 9,500 bucks, almost $10,000. Now let's just say if they're true triple net for whatever reason, now they're true 100% triple net, I will now go to my expenses and I'll take $9.50 and I go back to my income statement here and I go here and instead of 2840, I'll go 950. 9.5. So that means every month they're paying 100% of the expenses broken down percentage-wise by each tenant. They're now paying 100% triple net. I still have my vacancy rate in there because I have to always keep that. My expenses is going to be the same, 56. Yeah, okay, because the only thing that's changing is my management fee continues to go up. That makes sense. My 5% for management, that's right. Because this is going to be 5% off of the gross rent. Anyway, so now my income is now going to show 200 grand a year. So if I go to cash flow minus my vacancy rate, you see 183,000 in gross income minus expenses. Now I have an income of 124. So just by changing, obviously, from gross rent to triple net, my income went up $44,000. From 80 grand net to 124 net. Obviously, deals that are triple net, we can pay more money. It could be the same exact property, but triple net versus gross rents, I'm going to be able to pay more money. We're going to be able to pay more money and still make good returns. Then obviously we can go back to the summary page. And by the way, that change, we went from for gross rent, it was a 9 cap, and now it's a 15 cap. I mean, obviously I know I'm paying 800. I mean, these are irrelevant numbers, but it was even showing my future value, resale value went from 135 to 2,050,000. You can see, like, you really have to read through leases, guys. Like, this is not one of those things where, you could just say, like, oh, it's, they pay CAM, they claim that it's triple net. It's not triple net until you review the lease and it specifically states tenant is responsible for common area maintenance, utilities, taxes, insurance, and 100% of expenses. Like, if you don't see that written clearly in a lease, it does not mean it's triple net.